Just going to be standard, right?
And we're back. Got some more donations. We got a donation from Loja, who donated $20 and says, thanks for the great stream and an all-round solid Pact coverage. We got $20 from Nomful, who says, congratulations on finishing your podcast on Pact, guys. I'm so amazed at your ability to keep going throughout this 24-hour live stream. You've done an amazing job and raised so much money. Props to you. Thank you, Nomful. Thank you for tuning in. And a bird has donated $6.75, which seems like a mistaken USD to AUD translation, and said, Elliot, put a drink in. We'll honour that. Elliot, do you want to chuck a drink in there?
Yeah, I'll go do that.
Next up, we're going to be talking about Poke.
So I'm just going to put it out there. I think we had half an hour dedicated to this. That was maybe going to be something we could squeeze in before Wildbow published the 4th chapter as we were doing the notes for this. So we may just eat into what is meant to be Pact chapter by chapter in 30 minutes, because I'm assuming pretty much everyone here.
Well, but we
is
also have to
familiar with
get through some of this stuff, so we might try and keep it a little tight.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're probably going to rush through it. But,
maybe should we do some of this now and then we'll get into Poke stuff?
Okay.
That's probably
I'll start getting the drink ready.
The drink. I'm going to start doing some tarot readings. We have a bunch of tarot card readings to do, so let's start with some of those. Sorry, I've got to move all this old stuff from the musical out of the way. The Pact musical that was excellent and is coming to Broadway soon. Alright, got a backlog of tarot readings to do here, so let's get stuck into them.
I think we had a backlog of, like...
We got fan art to do as well. We got 4 fan arts.
I thought we had a backlog of the Forsworn drink as well.
No, I think we did okay with that. I was drinking from it as we were talking to Wildbow and stuff, which maybe was a mistake, but hey, that's how it goes. Alright, I've got my tarot card deck, my beautiful set of cards. So, the first tarot card reading here is Monk Moo, who is hopefully still in stream. Oh my god. Elliot, we've done it. Well, almost. We're $3.25 away. Because somebody has just donated $400 anonymously. So whoever that was...
Holy shit, thank you.
Thank you, we love you, and we're almost... I'm assuming we'll get there now. I'm assuming somebody will make the final $3 there. Shit. There we go. Alright, well, thank you, Anonymous. Let's get stuck into these... Kipper says, nobody donate anymore! Let's get into these tarot readings, shall we? Sorry, I'm just going to pop that over the side. So, Monk Moo, hopefully you are here in chat. We are going to do your right-hand tarot card reading. So, right-handed Monk Moo. Oh, there it is. Nathan has donated $5 and we've broken the barrier. Well, that's it.
The pact is sealed.
We're getting tattoos. Well,
get it?
Should we do the next donation goal, Elliot?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
We did set up one additional donation goal here. Wait, what was the number? Fuck. It's not coming up now. It was...
Oops.
Yeah, I lost it. God damn it. Now there's too many donations. Alright, let me check the donation history.
Everybody jumped in to be that last one.
$5,031. Okay. $5,000. And what was it? It was...
Yep.
Okay, so if we make this one, we do have one additional donation. We are 0.5% away from hitting it. Actually, I don't want to... I'm going to keep us on our old one, because I actually think it's better to see how far we get.
The joke was meant to be, if we hit $1 million, we promise the tattoos will be of butts.
Yeah, but I'm actually going to change it. Because I think it's better to show that we've passed the really quite high goal that we set here.
Yeah, I honestly... had very little faith we would hit that. You guys have been incredible.
It's been absolutely incredible. If you guys want to try and get us to 1 million, you can. That would be great too. Let's get into Monk Moo's tarot card drawing, though. We've got to get through some of these tarot cards. So Monk Moo, we've done right-hand dominant, so we're going to do a right-hand, left-hand reading, as we've been doing all along. Monk Moo is right-hand dominant, which means right hand is going to be focused on the immediate or the immediate concern or the dominant trait to keep an eye out for. Left hand is going to be focused on the potentially recessive trait or the thing to keep an eye out in the future for. So, Monk Moo, your right hand card is a reversed 7 of Swords. Oh, this is the Sly Fox, if we remember this one. The thing I love about this is people have hopefully been seeing these coming up more and more. So, actually, this is one of the few ones that actually has some interesting, strong... and powerful and positive messages as a reversed card. So it's not necessarily negative. The reversed Seven of Swords talks about turning over a new leaf and seeking change. So that's something that we should pay attention to, Monk Moo. You should pay attention to the fact that you might need to be seeking change in order to get somewhere. And where might that somewhere be? A reversed Seven of Cups. Interesting. Let me pull up my Seven of Cups here. The reversed Seven of Cups talks about diversion and temptation. Okay, so this is coming together in an interesting way. No, it's here actually. It's back here. Yeah.
Sorry, I made that worse.
The reversed Seven of Cups is a bit interesting. What this reading seems to be suggesting to me is the reversed Seven of Cups talks about temptation and distraction, I would say. So if we're looking at the Seven of Swords, the Seven of Swords is talking about seeking change and being restless. And the Seven of Cups is talking about this potentially being a distraction. So I think the thing to pay attention to, or a diversion, the thing to pay attention to is you might be in a position where you're starting to see that you're getting restless, you want to seek a change. Be careful of that because it might lead to a situation like that seeking of restlessness, that seeking of a change might just be a distraction or a diversion from some other important thing that's going on in your life. So it's important to pay attention to, while yes, you might be getting restless and looking for a new thing, don't let that be too overwhelming of a distraction that takes your mind off of other things you should be focusing on. So that's your reading, Monk Moo, your left-hand, right-hand reading. I hope you enjoyed it.
We got another person asking which app you're using.
Yes, so the app I'm using to help with my references for the ones that I'm not 100% on is an app called Labyrinthos. It's a free application that allows you to do tarot card readings, but also is a reference that is pretty good for checking the meanings of cards. These cards here are the Wild Out There Tarot is the name of this deck. It's a beautiful deck of tarot cards that are very Pact-esque that I have borrowed from a friend of mine, Dinte. So thanks to Dinte. The Wild Unknown. Sorry, I keep forgetting it. Next up, Terrified Ham, also right-handed. So let's take a look. We've got a right-handed for Terrified Ham, and we've got a left-handed. Again, right-handed is immediate or dominant, and left-handed is recessive or future to pay attention. So, Terrified Ham, let's take a look at your right-handed card first. The Father of Pentacles, which might also be known to other tarot folks as the King of Pentacles, not reversed, normal style, OG style. The King of Pentacles is a really interesting one. It kind of represents what you traditionally associate with a king, which is a position of power, not necessarily power over other people, but power and security, like material wealth security. So maybe wealth, maybe it's power, maybe it's protection, but the things that you would kind of traditionally associate with what you might think of as a king. That's what we get from the Father of Pentacles. So let's keep that in mind as we look towards a reversed Mother of Swords in our sinister slot there, also known as the Queen of Swords in other decks. So reversed, the Mother of Swords is a cold-hearted and calculating and cruel Lady Macbeth style card. That's the theme to watch out for here. So putting this together, what I'm taking from this is Terrified Ham. It's possible that you are currently or will be shortly able to find your way into a position of power, of security, of getting to a point where you have the things that you want. But the thing to watch out for there is you don't want to insulate yourself from the outside world, and you don't want to insulate yourself from other people, get cut off, start to get cold over time, start to get cruel. It's a deer with rainbow antlers. So that's your reading, Terrified Ham. I would expect some good news, some good security and windfall either in your present or your future. But as that comes, make sure you don't insulate yourself too much from the outside world. Make sure you don't become disconnected from the things that bring you emotional and kind of personal joy and warmth. So there's your reading, your left-hand, right-hand reading. I hope you got a good thing to think of, a good prompting thought out of that. Next up, we have Ev. Sorry, let me just double check that name. I might have just not written down the entire name there. Ev? With a tarot reading? Oh, it was just Ev. Okay. Ev with a tarot reading. This is a right-handed tarot reading here. So Ev, again, will do our right hand, left hand reading, and we'll focus on the right hand as the primary hand and the left hand as the sinister secondary hand. So Ev, with your right hand, the card that we are pulling out is this one. And with your left hand, the card that we're pulling out is that one. So let's talk about your immediate right-handed card first, Ev. We are looking at a reversed sun from the Major Arcana. So the sun normally talks about joy and success.
Such a nice card.
I know, it's beautiful, isn't it? I'll show it to the stream. Reversed. So it normally talks about joy and success, but when it's reversed, it's basically the exact opposite of that. It's potentially depression, it's negativity, it's negative influences feeding in and causing a negative emotional cycle. So that's the present. Let's keep that in mind as we look towards the future, which is a reversed Daughter of Pentacles, or a Page of Pentacles, it might also be known as in some tarot decks. So the Page of Pentacles here is relates to daydreaming, it relates to laziness, it relates to things not being practical, either in your personal or professional life. So putting this together, the theme that I would get from this is to watch out for. These might feed into each other actually in a bit of a cycle, but either situations that are causing you to be down in the dumps, some negative situations that are affecting you, and transitioning into a unwillingness to put in energy and unwillingness to strive to work yourself out of these situations. Or it might go the opposite way. It might be a kind of a lack of ambition or a lack of energy being put into situations leading to negative outcomes for you. So I think pay attention to that. I think it is a cycle. It is a cycle that feeds into itself. Pay attention to that cycle and try and make sure you cut it off, either by working your way out of negative feelings or working your way past like laziness or kind of being worn down by potential negative circumstances in your life. So Ev, that's your reading. I hope that gives you some things to think about and some things to take forward into the future. So next we have Smemon, who again is right-handed. We'll do Smemon's reading next. We've got 4 more after this one. Yeah, we got a lot of tarot readings.
Yeah, okay.
Smemon. So a right-handed reading here for Smemon. Here is the right-handed card. Here is the left-handed card. So Smemon. Oh my God! Another reverse Daughter of Pentacles. So as we just saw, that's talking about laziness or a lack of motivation. And your right-handed card is the Mother of Swords, which another card we just saw, which is to do with coldness and being cut off from the world and turning into cruel and cold. So what I'm thinking here is, again, it kind of feels similar to what we just talked about with Ev. This cycle that is being fed into here of having being kind of having some negative circumstances or something that leads you to potentially be cut off from a friend and have an experience that means that you're feeling kind of disconnected from that friend, and that leads you to cycle into this not being able to put in effort, which can be obviously quite difficult when you're hit with negative circumstances. I'm not saying that anyone should push themselves in a way that is unsafe for them, but it's definitely something to keep in mind, that you want to make sure that even if you get hit with some negative personal consequences, there is no cycle that feeds in and out between these two. So make sure that you're at least aware of that cycle and able to take some steps to stop it if it does end up happening. That's the warning I would give to you, Smemon. So there's your reading, and I hope it is. I hope you get some insights and things to think about from it. Our next one is from Dirk Grayson. I can't read my own handwriting. Dirk Grayson, also a righty. We've got a lot of righties in the chat today. Dirk Grayson is a right-handed, and we're going to pull out his cards here. Let's see if we get the reversed Daughter of Pentacles again. I hope not. It's a grim card. So we have the Ace of Wands, normal style. So the Ace of Wands is one of the minor arcana in the Wands set, and facing forward, it's to do a lot with creation and willpower. Or the ability and the drive to make things happen. So whether that's, usually it's in a creative sphere. Actually, with the wands, we get a lot of kind of creativity themes. So that's what we can see in the present. What we can see in the future is a reversed 3 of Pentacles. So if we take a look at our 3 of Pentacles, here we go. I like to think of this as the so you can see the 3 of Pentacles. We have this these 3 pentacles that are connected together. The 3 of Pentacles is all about the connections between groups. I often, when I was kind of talking to people about tarot, and I was younger and I was in my university days, it often related to like group projects a lot, like interworkings of groups that have been put together. So something to pay attention to, and potentially if this applies to you, it's a creative project with a group where the group is not going to work together quite well. So the reverse 3 of Pentacles here to me suggests a group that is discordant. So this is the thing to take away from this reading, I think, is a creative sphere, some creative passion that you have currently, Dirk Grayson, that you're chasing, that involves a group. Be aware of the connections within that group, and be aware that this kind of future sinister card may come to pass. This group starting to have some negative relationships. Pay attention to those and try and make sure that you steer away from those as much as you can, or kind of amend those before it becomes problematic. So watch for your creative spheres, especially creative spheres that are to do with groups working together. So maybe that's a band, maybe that's a group project, something like that. But keep an eye out for those kinds of things. Connections, yeah. Thanks for donating, Dirk Grayson. I hope you got something to think about from your reading there. Next up, we have kwlowery, who is again a right-hander. Kwlowery is getting a right-hand, left-hand reading. So here is our dominant, and here is our sinister card. So kwlowery, for our dominant card, we have the 10 of... Sorry, I couldn't see it. It was a bit dark. The 10 of Wands. So the 10 of Wands facing forward is talking about... it's interesting. It can be interpreted negatively or positively. It kind of depends. It could be an accomplishment. It could be something that you're going to achieve or have achieved, or it could be a burden that you're being saddled with, or a responsibility. So either a task that you will achieve, or a task that you're being kind of tasked with that you need to carry out. So that's the thing that we're kind of focusing on here with the dominant hand. With our sinister hand, we've got a reversed sun, which again means, I guess, sadness, maybe depression, possibly negative emotional feelings. So what I would take from this reading, kwlowery, is pay attention to the responsibilities that you're being saddled with in the present or potentially in the immediate future, and make sure that these responsibilities aren't causing you negative emotions, because that's a potential source of unhappiness and stress, either presently or in your immediate future. So I would pay attention to that. Hopefully that has given you something to think about, kwlowery. Our next reading is for Nathanawake, who again is a right-hander. We've got one more after this that's a left-hander, so it'll mix it up a little bit. So Nathanawake, we've got our right-handed card and our left-handed card. So our right-handed dominant card for Nathan is... Oh my god. I hate it when the same cards come up. It feels very ominous. Is the reversed sun. So we're talking about a sphere of unhappiness, something that's probably causing unhappiness currently or in your immediate future. And let's look at what might be the outcome of this. We've got a reversed 7 of Cups. So if we dive into our 7 of Cups here, what the reversed 7 of Cups is talking about... Oh, this is one we got actually before as well. It's about a temptation. It's about diversion. It's about distraction. Confusion as well, possibly. So what I would say here is the combined context of these is, I think there's probably a source of unhappiness that's coming up or has just occurred in your life, Nathanawake, and it's easy to let that be overwhelming to you, let that be a source of distraction, diversion from the things that you actually enjoy. So if this does come to pass, make sure that you're paying attention to what are the things that I care about, and don't let this potentially steer me from this path, from this track. So that's the reading I would give for you, Nathan. I hope that gives you some interesting things to think about. Finally, Sarah the Penguin, our final reading for immediately right now. This is a left-handed reading. So basically, it's the same, except the left-handed is the key and the right-handed is the sinister. So, left-handed, immediate. Right-handed, sinister. Okay, so, Sarah the Penguin, let's take a look at your immediate, your dominant card. I hate it when the same ones come up. It's so spooky. It's been happening a lot. But I guess we've been doing a few in a row, so maybe it's maybe the cards are trying to say that that's not something that they want. We talked about the Father of Pentacles. It came up in the positive, and it was referring to the positive ideas of a king, so wealth, security, prosperity. The reversed is the opposite of that. So we're talking about a potential, maybe it's greed for wealth. Maybe it's a desire for indulgence, or interestingly, it can be associated with like eroticism or sensualness, which is a bit of a steer from the others, I think, but that's where it is. So potentially like a lust or a greed there. So that's something that you might have to watch out for, and let's look at the specific context for it. We're looking at a reverse 10 of wands again. It's freaking.
Are there 6 cards in this deck?
No, this is a full tarot deck, guys. And I've been shuffling it between each reading and drawing them randomly. It's really kind of starting to stress me out. So we talked about the before we saw the front on 10 of wands, which was talking about kind of a task or a burden or a responsibility. The flip side of that is a lack of priority around it. Still revolves around a task, but it's the negative aspects of this, of having a responsibility that you're unable to delegate or effectively solve. So putting this together, what have we got? We've got some greed, we've got some desire, some envy potentially, and we've got some ideas around an inability to execute, or specifically to delegate or solve in a different way the things that are facing you. So I'm not specifically sure. It doesn't immediately jump out to me which sphere this might be. It might be financially. That is something that comes up often with the Father of Pentacles. It might be, we've said erotically, like relationship-wise, but more like short-term relationship, more that kind of vibe. But pay attention to how these things burden you. Pay attention to the burdens that you get in your professional or personal life, and pay attention to the way that you're responding to those burdens, whether these are things that are starting to cause you stress, because I think there is going to be some sort of burden that's coming up or already starting to take shape in your life that is going to burden you with basically a lot of undue stress. Yeah, that's a bit of a negative reading. So I like to round out our negative readings by saying that these cards are giving us ideas of ways to think about our life. They're not necessarily predicting the future, but they're framings for you to think about different things. Think about the ways that the things that are in your life, the things that you might face. Think about them in different framings, so that we can all get to our 2 birds on 2 bikes happy ending. So those are our tarot card readings. We have actually one other thing, which is Warwick donated some bonus readings to chat, but we'll get to those a bit later, I think. Yeah. We've just done a bunch of them in a row.
Some people in chat were bringing up, they think we might have missed Althane.
Oh, did we miss a one? I'm sorry, we might have. I'll quickly take a look for you, Althane, and we'll do it with our next batch of tarot. We'll definitely get to it. We'll definitely get to it. Althane, I saw the fan art of Evan. I might have missed. Oh no, here it is. Tarot reading, please, right-handed. Yeah, sorry, I did miss it. I'll add it to the list, and we'll get to it when we get to some of the other tarot. Readings.
For now we should get into poke before we miss our chance.
Yes. Tarot right hand. Thank you.
I was gonna say I think this will be an hour.
We should try and keep it speedy. I can't believe we hit the tattoos goal, Elliot. I'm still reeling from that. Guys, that's insane. The fact that we raised $5,000. That was like, we'll put tattoos because that's a cool stretch goal, but we'll put it at a number that we don't think we're going to reach. Because we're kind of like, we're keen, but we're a bit iffy about it. And it's like, actually incredible that we've raised $5,000. It makes me so happy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I want to give a special shout out to Kipos and Bird, who have been here the entire time, which is absolutely incredible.
Yes. Sorry, just to answer Kipos' question. This will be my first tattoo.
Yeah, me too.
I've actually kind of always had a rule that I'd never really get one.
I almost got a tattoo about 2 or 3 years ago, but I decided against it.
Yeah, okay.
So now it's time to.
Yes, these will be our first.
Yeah, this is what better way to immortalize it than
Library centipede tattoo. I don't know if I want to open with that one, but
we'll see. Okay, so
maybe I do.
Huh?
Maybe I do want to.
No, you don't. That's a mistake. All right, cool. Should we talk about poke?
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing that I really want to dive into in poke, just as a general theme, is
Sorry, can you start that again?
Oh, we did a new
Sorry.
recording, yep. So the thing I want to talk about in Poke as a general theme is we're talking about relationships here. And of course, it's relationships with a weird Pact lens, and I absolutely love it. I'm so excited to dive into it more.
Yeah, yeah, you know what? I just want to say more as we go in. Like, let's just
Okay,
dive in.
I think one quick note is we actually did already do a... Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Hey, guys, sorry.
Hey, here we are. Yeah, so we have already covered what is second Poke. We did that when it was just to do the right thing before Poke had really sort of publicly taken form. So if you're a Patreon if you're a patron of Doof Media, you get access to our episode on second Poke, which we thought might be called Pram back then. So just to give you a quick summary, that one actually takes place second, but basically we meet Ben, this guy who studies like bloodlines, / incest magic, depending on how much you want to butcher his profession. And he's dating a goblin for some reason. And in an effort to move their relationship forward, his goblin girlfriend Dee Dee kidnaps a baby so that they can have a kid. And yeah, so we talked about that for about 20 minutes in a bonus episode. So we'll skip past it here, and we're going to dive into first Poke.
Yes, this is before second Poke, it's first Poke, and we're in Dee Dee's head here. She's basically grooming herself, which is kind of horrifying in a goblin way.
Yeah, I think like it's really fun switching into Dee Dee's perspective for this one. Like, we covered second Poke first, so we kind of knew a bit where this is heading. Like, we knew Dee Dee was going to be someone who's in a relationship with Ben. But seeing the world from her goblin-y perspective, and understanding that people reading these stories in the order they're in now wouldn't necessarily know that's where it's going. It's such a fun perspective to be in, you know?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's so wild. It is this really interesting perspective because she's doing all these weirdly, like, messed up grooming rituals and it's just so bizarre. Like, I love the one that I really loved about this, and I know I shouldn't, like, this is such a low-key gross moment compared to what happens, but she brushes her teeth and then uses the foam from her toothbrushing to smooth out her hair. And this is like one of the first or second ones that happens. And it's so not gross compared to all the later stuff that happens. But I'm just so immediately disgusted. And I just know it's going to go downhill from there.
Yeah, like, she's so... this is so unintuitive to her. She's so bad at this stuff. There is so much work for her to do this, and she still kind of does it badly.
Yeah.
Like, she just rips out her hair when it's too knotted.
Yeah.
She's using the wrong chemicals. Something I think we appreciate because we know where it's going is that, like, but she's trying. Like, something else, like, oh my God,
it's so much effort.
Yeah.
That's the theme of this chapter, right? Is she's put in so much effort, and it's for really what is to us as humans a very small thing, which is just she cuddles up with her boyfriend at the end, and that makes her so happy. But it's so beautiful how much effort she's putting in. I'm sorry, chat. I'm going to pull out some specific gross sentences. Here's a sentence I love. She thinks, "It was hard to know what gunk went where." So who knows what the fuck that is?
I think, yeah, that's what's so fun about Dee Dee's perspective is she makes everything gross.
Yeah.
You know, and she's a goblin, so it's not, you know, oh, I don't know what chemicals go where, I don't know what gunk goes where.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's horrifying. Another one where she gets out nail polish and she paints her nails red. She paints her fingernails and she paints the raw beds where her toenails had been red. And again, I just like squirmed at that. It's just horrifying.
Yes, yeah. The goblin self-harm stuff is like, it definitely makes me very uncomfortable, which is entirely the point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. So Dee Dee kind of does more chores, cleans herself up more, watches some pretty gross TV, and then basically records any TV that she... Well, we don't explicitly see this, but we kind of get the theme of it. She's recording any TV shows that might have incest in them, or that do have incest in them. She's quite specific that they do.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, again, we're coming into this knowing already that we're going to kind of think she's a goodie eventually.
Yeah.
Because we've read the other one, so it's just like...
Yeah.
It's fun watching this dynamic of her trying to domesticate herself, I guess, or humanize herself.
Yeah.
And it's taking so much of her. She's fighting every instinct to get there.
Yeah. Can we quickly touch on the Goblin TV shows? Because
Yeah.
they're all horrifying. I don't know if this is like a Canada or an American thing or just like a Goblin thing, but they're all horrifying shows. There's no like non-horrifying shows on her TV.
It comes up in
Poke 3,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
where
yeah.
they have their own Goblin TV channels.
Yeah.
But this seems like it's human TV, but she's just like somehow intuitively finds the horrible shit.
No, she starts on channel -1, which I presume
must
is the
be a
Goblin
Goblin
one.
channel, yeah.
And then from there, she kind of goes to human TV, but she's finding the incest bits, and we'll sort of cover that in a moment.
Yes. So Ben, her boyfriend, arrives home and kind of begins cleaning up the mess that is left behind just by Dee Dee existing, which is great.
Yeah, I love how we start to get a bit of backstory here about how they met. Like, I think it's enough to satiate my curiosity, but not too much that we sort of lose like the mystery of how this happened.
Yeah.
Like, she was sort of originally kind of torturing, picking on him.
Yeah, it's not torturing. It's kind of like so we know that goblins like to basically make drama in people's lives.
Yeah.
I got the picture that she just picked somebody to fuck with by putting trash in their, house, and unfortunately she picked a practitioner, and then somehow they ended up dating. So that's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Ben kind of discovers Dee Dee in her apartment, and they catch up after Ben's trip, and it's wholesome, right? It's a wholesome moment. It's really kind of nice.
I like this bit where she's desperate to get out from under the couch, and you're sort of like, oh, because she's trying not to be seen, and then of course it turns out because she wanted to watch the show that Ben was putting on,
which was him pleasuring himself.
Yes. So yeah, again, it's all that stuff. Like these chapters in Dee Dee's head are so fun because it's her fighting her nature, and I mean, that's just compelling storytelling. Is having the heart and the head at war. I think that's a George R. R. Martin quote, and that's Dee Dee and Ben as well to a T.
And Dee Dee reveals to Ben that she's been recording all this incest because she thinks it's helpful for his work. And it's this thing about Dee Dee that happens in every single one of these chapters where she's putting in so much effort, and it's so endearing to see this goblin who is horrifying, but yet putting in so much effort to try and do the things that seem like the good relationship things to do. And it's so wholesome. It's
She's
lovely.
been reading like relationship books and stuff. So like, Poke is so upsettingly wholesome.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's so great.
And we get the final line of Dee Dee thinking, it was fucking worth the effort. And it's like, it just is the whole chapter is Dee Dee going to so much effort to do these fairly simple things, what we would see as simple as humans, and it's all worth the effort to her because she gets to just do this, do this normal human interaction. It's just kind of what she wants.
And just the phrasing, like, this was all fucking worth it. Like, that's very Dee Dee.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I love it.
So that's first poke. We're going to dive into third poke now, which is a bit longer, and fourth poke as well. Let's do third poke. Shall we go?
Yeah.
So Dee Dee and Ben are in goblin warrens, which are kind of these, like, underground goblin versions of the abyss, I suppose.
Goblin-y slums?
Yeah, it's kind of a goblin... I mean, warren is the right word for it, really.
Yeah, slums from a human perspective, but I think the goblins are right at home.
Yeah, totally. So it's horrible. It's a horrifying place. It's like everything about a goblin dialed into a place, which is great. Dee Dee kind of protects Ben from a very bad goblin, and we'll get back to that later.
Yeah. No, like, I think this chapter does a really good job of putting you on edge right at the start because, there's these hints that there are these awful goblins in the Warrens. And also, you just assume that a goblin and a human dating is not going to be enough to keep Ben safe here.
Yeah.
So I was instantly just tense because I was like, how is this idiot going to get attacked?
Just end terribly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it totally seems like it will.
Like, Ben is so vulnerable because he's not a fighter.
Yeah.
We know that going into third poke, and you're just waiting for him to get attacked and get messed up.
Yeah. That's hanging over this entire chapter. And I want to pull out every little piece, but obviously I can't. But, I mean, Warbo touched on it when we were talking to him. The idea that goblins are just so fun to write because they let you dive into this, what is juvenile but so satisfying humor of, like, what does it look like for people who just are so on a different level to humans to interact with this world. It's so much fun. We get a cameo by the milkmaid, who is a nice little Word of God character that Warbo devised.
Okay.
And Diddy kind of continues leading Ben towards a meeting with a friend that we recognize. It's our girl Mags.
Yes.
Before we get to the Mags meeting, though, let's maybe talk about goblins and the variants that we see in goblins here. So, to me, I've always seen the categorization of other as something so interesting because we've got like fairy, we've got demons, and demons have different subcategories. That's fine. We've got goblins, we've got spirits, and a lot of these feel very similar. And then we have boogeymen, which are like that's where all the other spooky stuff goes.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Welwick says, "Gone ahead to bed. Thanks for the great show, Rupert and Elliot. Great job on the podcast. Look forward to seeing what you do next." Yeah, Welwick, thank you. You've donated so much and so altruistically, letting other people do things like tarot readings and stuff. It's been great having you. See you around.
Yes, we'll see you later.
So yeah, I often saw boogeymen as super varied and the rest not that varied. But here we see a bunch of weirdly different goblins, and I'm so into it. Like we see all these goblins that are just completely different styles and different variety, and they're all so gross in different ways. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and I mean, that was such a thing in Pact as well. We had things from like goblins that are a foot tall to the hyena.
Yes.
It's very fun how they're just this collective of shapes.
Of disgusting blobs.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, and of course, the flip side of all this gross goblin stuff is Dee Dee wants to show Ben where she grew up. And it's so cute. I mean, she phrases it in terms of, hey, why don't you fuck me where I was hanging out when I was 2 days old, which is,
of course, a goblin thing to do.
Yes, but, like, it's just this whole dynamic of, like, these two just kind of moving forward with a relationship that I don't think anyone else in the world is wanting to happen. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, like, what... It's so bizarre. Goblins exist kind of on this level of nobody wants to interact with a goblin. They just kind of have their own world of societies that are going on.
Even
here.
goblins barely like hanging out with other goblins. I feel like they do it out of necessity. More.
Yeah.
Like they hang out, but it's more just because they I don't know. Like it's not like I don't know. I feel like they all hate each other, but they hang out because that's better than being alone still. But it's not like I don't think they form like active, positive friendships that often.
Yes. Now, just quickly, we're starting to build up a backlog of donations, but we're going to get to all these donations a little bit later once we finish talking about Poke, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So, just as they're about to kind of start talking to Mags, Dee Dee is attacked by a smaller goblin who she kind of overpowers eventually. And it turns out this goblin is basically a friend of hers, or like an acquaintance at least. And she introduces Ben to the rest of her crew, these other goblins.
It's the equivalent of meeting her family.
Yeah, it's like meeting the parents or the siblings, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's weird and great.
I think the extra detail here, like we need to call out, is the idea of this other little goblin as it's attacking her, keeps shouting like, "Name me." She keeps saying like, "You need to earn it," and it's like, so is there some sort of system of goblins naming each other?
Well, that would explain why they have such disgusting names. Is of course a goblin would give a horrifying name like that to another goblin.
Yeah, so like I don't know, that's just a nice little extra bit of world building, I guess.
Yeah, once they build enough of a reputation for themselves, they earn a name.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like that. Yeah, it's great. We also meet Sir Turd Swallow here.
Yes. I need to give a shout out to Sir Turd Swallow. He might be my favourite goblin now.
Yeah.
He's like this weirdly
Big
posh
shout out to
goblin.
the Turd Knight.
Yeah, like he's not posh, but like by goblin standards, he's like a posh goblin.
Yeah.
We'll come back to him later because he's got some absolutely stellar quotes later.
Yes. So yeah, as we talked about, Ben starts talking to this woman that he has come here to meet, and it's Mags, the Goblin Queen.
Yeah. Well, not just Mags. She's actually referred to as Mags Holt.
Yeah, that's wild, right?
That surname's new, I'm 90% sure. So...
Well, she wasn't Mags Holt before, she was just Mags. So this indicates to me that she has at least done something with Podrick, because one of the things about becoming Mags was she lost connection to her parents.
Yeah, right? That's the thing. She got her dad's back, presumably.
And getting this surname back ties her back to her family. And so presumably this is a big deal for her. She's now got access to her family again.
It's interesting, like, I wonder if the Podrick stuff is resolved, if she got a bit of it, if she found a way to get the surname in another way. Like, we don't need to know,
of course,
because it will be covered in Pact 2.
Yes.
But, I don't know. Like, it's a really fun little detail that I think is blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much juicy world building here. Like, this is a great one. It hints what's going on. She's remade her parents, but there's a lot of this stuff, especially around Max. But we'll get to more of it in a bit, I think.
Well, I think the interesting thing to consider, like you've written in your notes here, she's not Maggie Holt.
No.
I wonder if she even wants to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe there's too much baggage there.
Maybe we don't know how far ahead this is. Like, this could be a couple of years. Maybe
kwlowery says maybe she married a random person whose last name is Holt just to get the name.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like a high level strategy there.
Yeah, but like, you know, maybe she's formed enough of an identity through Mags that she didn't need the Maggie anymore, and she'd rather keep Mags.
Yeah. So Mags comments on how out of place Ben seems here, and nothing exemplifies this better than a nearby human then just starts screaming. And Mags kind of explains that it's this own kind of goblin reality TV show thing that revolves around basically torturing people with bad karma. So they find people with bad karma, trick them into getting into this situation, and torture them. And of course, this is a trap for people like Ben who basically want to come here and save these people and then end up being in their place.
Yeah, so this is a big sort of, what the fuck, like, oh god, moment which Poke is full of.
Yes,
I love the idea that this is reality TV, but it used to be game shows. I'm 99% sure that's Wildbow just calling out these genres of TV which get oversaturated and very terrible.
Yeah.
So, of course, goblins have their own versions of those. I think that's even what's said in the chapter. It's just, I mean, like this, like, you know, what's the difference between goblins torturing people with 1,000 fish hooks or whatever in Love Island, you know?
I mean, there are differences, Elliot, but I get the point that you're trying to get at there, yes.
Also, something I want to touch on, like, Ben sort of says here, because there's kids screaming as well, and Ben's like, I can't imagine what kids would have done to deserve this sort of karma trap. And Mags is just sort of like, I can.
It was just crazy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because for us, Pact was so much of, there's so much shit to this system, it's maybe not fair. Like, you know, this could have been Blake. He had tons of bad karma. What if he'd been caught and ended up here, you know? Like, it's interesting to see Mags maybe not having, I don't know, not having that faith in humanity or something that, like, we spent so much time learning about in Pact. Like, she maybe hasn't completed that journey that the others did. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure if it's like fully counter to the message of Pact. It's kind of a bit. I mean, I can kind of see that Mags is still on her journey of working through being a part of the system to get to changing the system to improve the system, which is obviously something that we've seen in Pact is not necessarily a great way to go about things, but it seems like that's where Mags is at the moment. She's kind of stuck with her own baggage. So maybe it's unfair of her to be like, unfair on her for us to be like, no, you can't do that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It does just feel like she is counteracting a lot of what we learned in Blake's position, and she was familiar enough with that to maybe know that I can't imagine there's that many kids with that bad karma.
Yeah.
And again, like, if they're kids and they've earned that much bad karma, that's got to be, like, bad environment they're being raised in, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So Mags and Dee Dee kind of finalize the deal that they're making here. Mags has helped to verify and validate a lot of Ben's work relating to this lost tribe that he's trying to track down. And Ben kind of gets lost in his own world looking at this information, where we get this moment where Dee Dee's kind of mocking him like a human partner would. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's I mean, this is the whole thing of Poke, right? Is getting these really human touching moments from Dee Dee.
Yeah, like, it's just a really nice little moment where she's like, oh, he always gets lost like this.
Yeah.
And it's just like a normal couple
thing to
like
happen,
stirring thing to do.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, then it's sort of contrasted with them signifying the deal by spitting on each other's hands and shaking them.
A classic goblin way
especially
to signify.
Because DDs are covered in blood. I like how Mags wipes her hand afterwards, but like, she doesn't hesitate to do it.
Yeah, of course. It's wild.
Sorry. And we finally get to learn more about Ben's specific practice, which is studying these sort of noteworthy bloodlines, and it leads you to discover patterns. So this whole idea of, you know, the third son of a third son of a third son in certain families will have special abilities, and there might be multiple patterns. So it's about studying like a genealogy, figuring out these patterns, and then I mean, presumably these are the sorts of people who came after Midge, right?
Well, I actually think, I'm not sure if this was explicitly confirmed in like Word of God or something, but I'm pretty sure that in First Poke, Ben is referencing specifically Midge's family as a family that he's looking into.
Oh, okay.
This like third son of a third son or whatever, a ritual, incest among the patterns, making them a lot like a caveman. Like, I'm pretty sure Wildboy confirmed that was Midge. I'm not 100% sure, but...
Okay. Well,
it's very Midge-esque.
No, I mean, it definitely, like, your mind goes there learning about these bloodlines. Like, I can now see Midge was maybe somebody who was, well, I think she would have been like the first daughter of a first daughter, or, you know, something like that. Like,
yes.
It's one of these pattern things that made her just such a fucking unit, basically.
It's been deconfirmed. He is referring to the Warzenbergs, which is the family that we see more and more.
Well, it's the family he's researching here, and it's the family,
in the fourth one, yeah.
But, like, I assume, Midge is... a very like the people who came and bound Midge and pulled her from the abyss to bind her. I would be
practitioners.
I would assume they're similar to Ben in practice.
So Mags kind of offers to help out more in this situation, and Dee Dee gets jealous, and a fight almost breaks out between Dee Dee and Buttsack. And we kind of get our power levels set here that Buttsack is almost certainly a rung or two above Dee Dee. Things look like they're about to get serious when suddenly there's a big spooky noise of this big scary goblin, and everyone hushes. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah, we'll get back to that scary goblin because that's twice now. Should we talk about what Cock Nash says here about the whale? Should we just...
let's skip it. It's a bit NSFW, but if you want to find out what things a character like Cock Nash would say to horrify you, go read Poke.
It is, like... It's got to be right up there on the list of gross things that have been in anything. Yeah. Like, it's full on. I like it. I enjoy it in that sort of crass, gross way, you know?
I don't want to read the chat right now. It's too gross.
I want to jump back to one other thing, which is thinking about someone like Ben, and his practice is, I study these bloodlines. Yeah. And, you know, I'm looking at, like, subhumans is a term that I can't remember if we threw it around as
maybe
inaccurate
parahumans?
No, that's been taken.
That's taken.
But, you know, like, these people who have lost part of their humanity in these sort of incestuous or otherwise bloodlines. Yeah. And just sort of looking at why might someone like that end up with a goblin? Like, I'm still kind of processing this, but I feel like that's important. Like, the idea that Ben is the sort of person studying, and you know, even before he met Dee Dee, and before he even saw this, is someone who was obsessed with these concepts of people who weren't quite human, and now he's ended up with a goblin, and there must be something there.
Yeah, you're right. They talk about in second Poke, they talk about the ideas of like whether they could physically have a child together. Yeah. Stuff like that I think is interesting bloodline things that we might start to explore more in Poke, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about more Poke because they've been doled out quite slowly to us now, and
into
I quite like that. Like I could see myself getting overwhelmed by twice weekly Poke chapters.
Oh yeah, I mean Dee Dee and Ben, I don't know if you can follow them that much.
Yeah, they're very fun, but like I might get overwhelmed.
It'll wear you down a bit. Yeah, totally.
But like getting these chapters every now and then, like if there is a Pact 2, I'd love to see these two show up.
Oh yeah, totally. So before Mags gets her information from her side of the deal, she wants to ask another question of the two. She asks what's their deal, and Ben and Dee Dee reveal that they are an item.
And I mean, the reaction to all this is so great. I love the way Buttsack is like, kind of like, what? Like, are you serious? And then she's like, well, he's just kind of nice to be around. And that's when like Buttsack looks disgusted. Whereas like,
Dee Dee is so ashamed when she says it as well. That's my favorite part.
It's so like adorable because she's just like, she says it in defeat.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to admit it.
Nice to be around. Everyone's like...
And I love, but that's what set the goblins off. The goblins are then like, are you fucking serious? That's disgusting. Whereas like Mags is immediately like just disgusted by Ben. And there's these bits where he tries to defend himself and he's just like, I'm going to stop.
His defense is, I like trashy girls. It's not a defense.
It's a bit of a non sequitur. It's somewhat relevant, but
Do you
Yeah,
want to call out Turd Swallow's response, Elliot?
Yeah. So after Dee Dee says that she likes hanging out with Ben, Turd Swallow says, "I dare say," and he holds his hand to his chest, "ass fuck me forwards, sideways, and backwards, if I ever heard something so scandalous." And it's
Such
just
a
like,
goblin posh vibe.
yeah, he's such like an upper class goblin. I fucking love it.
really
It's like it's such a unique and funny extra little goblin, like rather than just another little crass hairball or something. It's great.
So with this revelation out of the way, Mags wants her info, and they dish on this goblin queen that obviously is the goblin queen from Mag's backstory, the Red Queen. That's a word.
No, that's not right.
Something like that.
This Goblin Queen isn't that bad.
Yeah, it's bad news, basically. It's bad news bears for Mags.
Yeah, it's funny because ever since Arc 2, I've actually been wondering, because she was referred to a Goblin Queen in that chapter, I believe, in Mags's interlude in Arc 2.
Yeah.
But then we later learn what Goblin Queens and Kings are, or it might even be before that, but I was always like, wait, so is she a Goblin or a Practitioner? Stupid me for asking an or question, because it's Pact, so the answer is
both,
yes. And yeah, I mean, this is great little extra detail. I'm excited to see more, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, we get set up here that feels like it's setting up for Mags's future story.
Yeah, there's no guarantee we'll learn it, but
there's facts that are dropped to and setting up like, oh, this Goblin Queen Gerhild has 3 very strong goblins that are stronger than the hyena. She's obviously tougher than them. We talk more about her backstory. Like, it's stuff that is setting up like, this is what we might do in Pact 2.
Yeah, like, I mean, there is...
The Adventures of Maggie Holt, or whatever it is.
Yeah, we talked about that in 1613, I think, how Mags's exit felt like but there's more to see here.
Yes,
and whether she takes that Tattletale-esque form or becomes a protag, or if there even is a Pact 2, we'll see.
Yeah.
But see. Like this Gerhild backstory stuff is incredibly fascinating. We're going to kind of skim over it for time reasons, but it's again like I just really want to see this third conflict between the two of them. Well, the second conflict between the two of them, just because it's so fascinating.
Elliot, Wildbow has confirmed he does have plans for Sir Turd Swallow.
Oh, yes.
Which is great. We will
see.
He
was so fun and unique. Like, he'd be crazy not to,
So, this meeting kind of winds down, and suddenly the noises of this very, very bad goblin pass by again, and Dee Dee kind of wraps it up, this bit that has been hanging over us, by talking about how this is such a bad goblin. This is such a terrible goblin that it might even fuck Ben's mum and enjoy it. And it's this delivery on this wild thing that's been set up. That is all just this horrible joke.
The entire tension of this chapter was just Dee Dee setting up a your mum joke. Yeah, it's a fantastic gotcha. And such a thing that you could only do in a goblin story. Like, it didn't at all feel cheap. I was just like, oh, of course.
I loved it. I found this really interesting as well. Mags talks about the Duchamps, and we get the hints that basically Lola has helped with the family. They're continuing their power of acquiring practice through marriage, presumably a bit less forced or arranged, and a bit more by choice. But it's still clearly the way the Duchamps are doing stuff. And it's interesting. Sorry. It's interesting thinking about what this means for what's happening with Lola now and what the Duchamp family looks like now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of thought she meant Sandra, but you're like, it could be either.
But she mentions Sandra, but also Sandra's daughter or niece that's helping run the family.
Yeah, okay. Well, it wouldn't be daughter.
No, niece. I can't remember this. It made me think Lola. Maybe that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Especially because Lola is a bit of the trashy aesthetic, which is why I like the fact that
might be a bit unfair on Lola. I see what you're saying.
But, you know,
by Duchamp
she's
standards.
Exactly, and she's explicitly rejected the traditional Duchamp.
I do like how Mags is kind of like, look, you're not going to go for any of these girls, but what have you got to lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially knowing his taste. I don't know. It's interesting to get this little extra detail on the Duchamp family and where they're at.
Yeah.
Seems like maybe they're a bit better now. I'll have to see them in action more to really tell.
Yeah, again, it's this seed of something's clearly going on here. Maybe there's more to explore.
Yeah.
That's third poke. Let's dive into fourth poke, the fourth and final for now. Ben and Dee are off traveling in the moonlight, kind of doing some research. Ben is doing research and Dee's come along in a dog carrier. They're basically in this quaint European town where they're tracking down one of these kind of magical bloodline families.
Yeah, it was funny when they first revealed they were in Europe. I was like, how did they get there? Because
Yeah.
like the Goblin Warrens, it's mentioned you can sort of fast travel using abyss tangential space.
Yep.
I was like, I don't think that crosses continents, and of course, yeah, I mean it's a dog cage like poor Dee Dee.
Well, she wanted to do it.
I mean, no, because she sort of says here she doesn't want to.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, it's so yeah. I mean, it's weird as hell, but I am enjoying the deepening of their relationship as they cross off these milestones of, now you're meeting my family. Now we're taking a trip together. It's like they're developing. They've moved in together, taking a trip together, meeting this family. Like, I mean, I want to see them get married. I'm calling it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that's what really jumped out to me at the start of this fourth poke is how different Dee Dee is, because we're back in her head again, and she's come such a long way. She's so much more calm, like, dare I say, more human. Like,
Yeah.
she's just less shit, basically.
Do you think the story of this is her getting more human?
I think it probably goes both ways. I talked about this a bit later about where I'd want to see Ben go, because yeah, I'll talk about that when we get to it in the notes, because
cool.
I'm not coherent enough to improvise right now.
Yeah, we're in hour 23 of the stream now, folks, so we're hitting the dregs of energy.
Yeah, but definitely like the distinction between Dee Dee's internal monologue from first poke and from this one is huge. She is still like a goblin, and she's not like completely reformed, or that's probably not even the right word. There's some human bias coming into all these terms, but she's so different to the person she was in that first poke. Like she's sort of calmed down a lot, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah, this town is a fun setting because it's so off-putting immediately. We get these vibes of it being off-putting that we start to see it immediately, and it really starts to build up until the payoff at the end. And it's interesting that Ben really doesn't seem to notice much of it. Actually, I think I wrote like 3 or 4 times, how is Ben not noticing how dodgy this all is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the offness of this town is built up in a really cool way.
Yeah.
Like at first it's just people, and then you start to realize it's people who notice Dee Dee, and it's like, oh, so they're all not innocent. That's a bit weird.
Yep.
Then there's like that grandma who tries to ward her off or whatever, and it's like, all people here are just like that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's sort of slowly escalating until the point where this Warzenberg guy sort of comes up, and it's just like, no, okay, this is a bad place.
Yeah.
How is Ben not seeing that everyone looks like they want to fucking die or leave? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that he just does not notice it at all. I got to pull out this line, sorry, before you keep going, because it's so good. Which is, they're talking about how it's potentially dangerous here, and Dee Dee wants to be armed. And Ben says, I'm confident. And Dee Dee says, other people said that, and then they end up with a bottle, like, down their throat, right? And Ben says, I'm confident, he said, in exactly the same way 2 other handless, glass-gargling dumbasses she'd met once had probably done. Which is such a perfect sentiment. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, again, Dee Dee is a very different person who she was in first poke. She is still a goblin.
Yeah.
I think these Dee Dee perspectives are so much fun. Like watching a kind of attempt to be wholesome goblin, but not quite. Like the bit where she is arming herself in her mouth with an assortment of stuff, including Ben's spunk from earlier in the day. It's just like, this story's so fucking gross. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Dee kind of starts to get a bit self-conscious as she realizes that this town is a town where Ben and Grisella came a lot. And actually, Grisella, his ex-fiancée, wife, this was her hometown.
Fiancée.
This is where she grew up. Fiancée, you're right.
Yeah, so something we start to really see here, and we've seen it in other places, but it starts to coalesce here, is like, Dee Dee has a bit of a self-conscious, like, insecure streak. Like, it kind of makes sense because, she's not conventionally attractive, I guess. And I can see why she'd have insecurities about Ben's attachment to her. I don't think they maybe is warranted, but I get why they're there. It's an interesting aspect to the dynamic because it feels very human. Like, it shows how much she's invested in their relationship.
Yeah, it is. And actually, we should point out, in case it didn't click for people, Grisella was the girl that was mentioned in, I think, third poke. who was blind but could kind of see the future. And we start to see how this girl and this family are really important to Ben's life and actually put him on the path that he's on now. We start to find out more about this, and it's clear that this family is something that is so important to Ben. The tracking and mapping of this family.
It's interesting to learn a bit more about him. Like, again, it's this whole thing. He was someone who was already kind of detached from humanity right from the start. I think, again, it's all this stuff like I'd love to learn more about his relationship with Grisella and how that turned him into the sort of person who is dating a goblin.
Yeah.
Or wanted to date a goblin. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I love the fact that Dee is struggling with this jealousy thing here too, because it's like, it is just Dee struggling to come to terms with the human aspects of relationship dramas. And it feels to me like jealousy over an ex is like a thing that happens a lot, and maybe people grow out of it by the time they start to mature and have multiple relationships, all that stuff. And it indicates to me that Dee is kind of progressing through the emotional relationship maturity of a human, and this is like her. She's in the kind of high school teenage age of like being really jealous about an ex-partner, stuff like that. And it's fun watching her struggle and then eventually grow and get her head around these things, because she is explicitly growing throughout each of these chapters.
Yeah, and so I think this is where I wanted to start talking about like the whole idea of what I think Poke is maybe trying to do.
Yes.
Which is relationships are all about you change in a relationship. Like I think that's just something that happens. Yeah. You and the other person or other people, you all change, and that's such a huge part of being in a relationship. And that like thematically that's linked to Pact so beautifully. Yeah. And so this idea of watching two people change each other in this way is interesting. Like obviously Didi's changes are much more pronounced or obvious to us. But I love this angle we keep sort of hitting it. Like Ben is kind of too naive and trusting. Yeah. I mean, he's dating a goblin for God's sake. And like, is Didi going to corrupt him a bit for the better? Like cure him of his naivete? And that's a fun extra dynamic as well, because curing him of his naivete also maybe sabotages her chances of a relationship with him.
Interesting.
I don't know. Like I think that could maybe be the stuff Poke would explore if it moves forward, and I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I like that. So Dee is thinking more and more about the way that Ben and her have started resolving conflicts like this, and we get more vibes of the way that she is maturing through her relationship here, as she's starting to solve problems in a more and more human way.
It's like, as you said, she's kind of growing up. Like, she went from this sort of raw violence of goblin conflict to now she's in, as you said, that kind of teenagery, like she can't quite get past the emotions of it, but she seems to be maturing.
Yeah, I love that idea, because as you mentioned, the ideas of humans driving change in Pact is so important, and as you mentioned, relationships are also a way to drive change for the people, however many people think of what's out. It's not necessarily just two people, and potentially however many people are in this committed relationship with each other. It's a way to change and grow, hopefully for the better. And this is a great explanation of that. I really love the idea that Pact 2, or even just Poke, or whatever this ends up being, could explore what does it mean to be human, and why is humans this capacity for change, and what does that mean if humans give other things the capacity to change as well?
Yeah. But I mean, we all know Pact 2 is going to be pace.
Yeah,
so.
So turn swallow the practitioner, and So Dee and Ben continue their adventure through this old village, and it's very adorable, and I mean, that's all there is to say here, right? It's great. It's fun.
It like, they are just getting really cute. Like, the cuteness is starting to overtake the awfulness, at least in their interactions. I mean, Dee was still walking around with cum in her mouth for a big chunk of the chapter, so it's not clean yet. But it's less about like, in first Poke, she was still sabotaging bits of his house just kind of out of instinct. Yeah. Whereas now they actually feel like they're kind of in a relationship.
Yes. And we finally get to this point. Wildbow's just clearing up some gross things here.
So I was thinking about the point that she regurgitated it, but didn't she swish it around in her mouth? Do we need to talk about this?
Yeah, let's just keep it. Elliot's mum is in chat, so let's keep it PG. So Ben runs across an old connection who's one of the Warzenbergs that he's clearly crossed paths with before. And this person invites them to a festival at the manor tonight. And Ben is so excited to go. He's so excited to get an opportunity to interact with the family.
What a great coincidence that this big party is just happening on this day. Like, they're so lucky.
So can I talk about this? A woman peered between curtains. As Dee fixed her eyes on the woman, she knew they were catching the moonlight. The woman hurriedly shut the curtains. It's so clearly... I mean, it's not The Hills Have Eyes. It's the kind of... I don't know the right vibe for it. It's like the European Hills Have Eyes. Where you get invited to a horror party.
It's the small village that has a monster haunting it. And,
exactly.
and like, everyone shuts their windows at night and the tourists are just like, oh, that's weird. Yeah, like, again, I feel like this is going to be the way to maybe move forward with Ben. Like, his naivete really comes to the fore in this chapter, and is that going to be something that we study if there's more Poke? Like, I can't wait to see.
Sorry, I'm just having to wrangle some chat here. So, yes... So they get escorted to this manor along with some other tourists. And again, these tourists are clearly from a horror film where they've like accidentally taken the wrong turn and are now going to end up being eaten. Yeah, Dee Dee basically confirms these people are almost certainly going to try and eat them as they get into this manor. They realize that this feast that is being prepared is for them to be eaten.
It's not pork. It's the long pork.
It's long pork, exactly.
Yeah.
And so Dee Dee kind of readies herself for a fight.
Yeah, and that's actually where it ends. So, I mean, hopefully we're getting
It feels like a
fifth
setup
poke.
for a fifth poke. Maybe not explicitly continuing this time period, but showing us what happens
It would be
next.
fun to see the aftermath as well.
I do agree. So yeah, I think Dee has proven herself to be an incredibly capable point of view character, as cunning as any Blake or Sylvester out there.
Yeah. I mean... we need to give a shout out to these other tourists they meet who are also invited.
Who are
just
clearly the feed from the horror film.
I just love
They're the
how
ones
it's
who
like,
are going to die first.
We got lost going down the river, and just when we thought all our luck had run out, we came across this town with a giant mansion, and they invited us to a free party. And it's like, that is such basic, like, cabin in the woods level horror setup.
There was a man who warned us away, but we paid no mind.
He was old and weird. Yeah, no, like, I love how...
I'm sure it was just old people talk.
I love how, like, horror movie fodder these people are. It's great.
That's fourth poke, guys. We really loved reading Along Poke. I kind of wish that we could dive into it more, but we've got a strict schedule that we're behind on. So I think maybe we'll take a quick summoning the next segment break.
Yes.
Leave some thoughts on Poke in chat, and we might respond to them as we get back. We'll take a quick summon segment break, and then we'll be back momentarily for more stuff.
Back in a minute or two.